Hello again, good evening, and welcome back to another episode of Minds on Guard, where we're learning how to guard our minds against all of the manipulations, attacks, and attempts at thought and behavior control that we come under today in the 21st century. Tonight, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper into a rapidly advancing issue that affects every American's freedom and privacy. I'm talking about the push for digital IDs, particularly through the Real ID Act. Now, we discussed this in the last video, but I think it's important to go a little bit further into the specifics of this new technology and just why it's such a concerning advancement in the limitation of people's basic freedoms. What I will be discussing is not conjecture. It's readily available information that can be checked and understood by anyone with access to the internet and a free-thinking mind. As we've discussed before, the rollout of Real ID is a textbook example of the problem-reaction-solution framework that's being used on the American people. And what has me so concerned about it is that when I discuss this issue with people that I know and care about, they do not seem to be questioning anything regarding the specifics, the purpose, and the marketing of this new technology. Now, why this is so concerning is that the unquestioning acceptance of this forced compliance measure indicates a serious lack of critical thinking, personal reflection, and general awareness of what is actually going on at a massive level. As of the official enforcement date of this new technology, it was reported that roughly 81% of people traveling in the U.S. have already complied with the new policy, and many are running to stand in line at the DMV to switch their credentials over to the new system out of fear of being told that they can't get on an airplane. Much like what we saw with the recent treatments for the coronavirus that were pushed so heavily by groups who were clearly working to benefit themselves while framing the narrative with altruistic and human-centered motives, Real ID is being sold as one thing while serving underlying interests that are now in a position to enforce a massive amount of control over the populace. This technology is setting up the infrastructure that will be used to regulate people's lives in ways that will ultimately cause a great deal of harm to many, and is being done under the guise of ensuring safety, security, and convenience. It's a very real and terrifying step in the incremental advancement of centralized, full-spectrum dominance over all areas of life in this country. As we go, we will be drawing insights from Catherine Austin Fitt's article, "The Digital ID Threat is Real. Don't Fall for Empty Promises and Trojan Horse Reforms." We'll explore the core concepts, the implications for our liberties, and how this ties into the broader battle against the rollout of Real ID. Understanding the Digital ID Agenda. Digital IDs are being promoted as solutions for secure borders, streamlined elections, and efficient access to various services around the country. However, beneath these promises lies a more sinister agenda: the establishment of a comprehensive surveillance and control system. As Fitz highlights, digital IDs, when combined with other digital systems, can monitor our whereabouts, limit our freedom of movement, and control our access to money, goods, and services. The Real ID Act, under the guise of national security, mandates standardized identification across states, effectively creating a national ID system. The system is run in a centralized fashion. It collects and stores personal data that goes far beyond your name, address, and date of birth. Along with these, there is a massive amount of biological data that is being collected through facial recognition software, geolocation tracking, and purchasing and travel habits, as well as health records and much, much more. This system is a stepping stone towards a comprehensive digital identity infrastructure that can be exploited for mass surveillance and control. Politicians across the spectrum are using familiar concerns like immigration and election integrity to garner support for digital IDs. Fitz warns that these issues are being used as Trojan horses to introduce and normalize digital ID systems. For instance, some conservatives are being persuaded to accept digital IDs as necessary for border security. While the previous administration allowed unchecked immigration, including a flood of problems like increases in crime and human trafficking, the new administration has seized on the crisis by promoting technological innovations that they say will secure the border and be able to track criminals within the country. What then goes unaddressed is that in order to enforce the new border security measures, all people must become subject to this new technological shift, or it will be completely ineffective at actually identifying and tracking those who are aiming to commit crimes. The net must be cast so wide that normal, law-abiding citizens must give up essential freedoms in order for this new plan to work. This is not a new strategy. We saw the same sorts of policies become normalized just after the attacks on 9/11. At the same time, we see that liberals are likely to be swayed by arguments about streamlining social services, less cumbersome and more personalized healthcare, as well as broader and more convenient access to social programs like EBT and unemployment benefits, are just some of the potential advancements that digital ID systems could facilitate. By focusing on the speed and efficiency of digital systems, proponents sell this new technology in the same manner as innovative smartphones, and this bipartisan push masks the true intent: expanding governmental and corporate control over individual freedoms. By presenting digital IDs as solutions to pressing problems, the public is being led to accept invasive technologies without fully understanding the long-term consequences. The Overton window and manufactured consent. The Overton window, or the range of policies politically acceptable to the mainstream, is being manipulated to make digital IDs seem inevitable and necessary. Through media narratives and political rhetoric, the idea of a national digital ID has shifted from a controversial concept to a seemingly reasonable solution. This shift is not organic. It's a result of deliberate efforts to manufacture consent. By controlling the discourse and framing the narrative, proponents of digital IDs are narrowing the public's perception of viable alternatives, pushing us toward acceptance of increased surveillance and control. The Real ID Act serves as a critical component in this agenda. By enforcing standardized identification, it lays the groundwork for a centralized digital identity system. We saw in the weeks and months leading up to the enforcement date a massive and coordinated media campaign that said anyone without a Real ID-compliant identification card would not be allowed to use any air travel for domestic flights. This was all we were told, and then, once the enforcement date had passed, the head of the DHS revealed that that was not the whole truth of the matter. Passports, as well as the current system of state-issued IDs, are still perfectly fine to use to board an airplane, only with an extra screening step. Why did that information get suppressed? What was the point of pressuring people with the half-true narratives and withholding of information? Is there something about the Real ID technology that those who are in positions of power don't want people to know or understand? The fact is, this system can easily be integrated with other digital databases, including financial records, health information, travel history, and creating a comprehensive profile of every individual in the country. Such integration poses significant risks to privacy and autonomy. With centralized control, authorities can monitor, restrict, or even deny access to essential services based on arbitrary criteria or political motivations. This should concern everyone, regardless of political ideology or social status. If a central authority can monitor and control your purchasing and access to travel, then we do not live in a free society. All it takes is the right crisis for total lockdown to happen, and we can kiss our most basic freedoms goodbye. the illusion of security and convenience. Proponents argue that digital IDs enhance security and convenience. However, this is a dangerous illusion. Centralized systems are prime targets for cyber attacks, and history has shown that no system is impervious. Just look at what happened in Spain last month when the entire country's power grid went down. All digitized services were rendered completely useless. People lost all access to their money and their ability to communicate with each other via wireless networks. Moreover, the convenience offered often comes at the cost of personal freedoms and privacy. As Fitz notes, the same entities promoting digital IDs are often those who stand to gain the most from increased surveillance and data collection. This convergence of interest should raise red flags about the true motivations behind the push for digital IDs. Awareness is the first step towards resistance. Understanding the implications of digital IDs and the Real ID Act empowers us to make informed decisions and advocate for our individual rights. Here are some actionable steps to counter this agenda. First, opt out. Do not comply with the Real ID rollout. The more people reject this technology, the greater the chance that it will lack the power needed to centralize an individual's personal data at the federal level. You do not need a Real ID to drive, to vote, or for any other general purpose where ID may be required. And yes, despite what you may be told by the DMV and the TSA, you can still fly with a passport or even a normal state-issued driver's license. You just may need to go to another security line. Second, educate yourself and others. Delve into resources like the Solari Report to understand the nuances of digital ID systems. Share what you find. Do not allow the pressure from media and policy campaigns to influence your critical thinking and freedom to choose. Third, engage with policymakers. Communicate your concerns to local and national representatives. Advocate for policies that protect privacy and oppose mandatory digital ID implementations. Fourth, support alternative systems. Promote and utilize decentralized systems that prioritize user privacy and autonomy. Seek as many ways as possible to reject the infrastructure that is creating the digital control grid. Use cash. Shop local whenever you can. And fifth, stay informed. Regularly follow updates on legislation and technological developments related to digital IDs. The more we understand about the systems being built, the better equipped we will be to handle the pressure that comes during rollouts and media campaigns designed to coerce us into behaviors and obfuscate what is behind the policies and technologies that are coming. The push for digital IDs under the pretense of security and efficiency threatens to erode fundamental freedoms and establish an unprecedented surveillance state. By recognizing the tactics employed, such as manipulating the Overton window and leveraging political Trojan horses, we can resist this encroachment on our liberties. We must always remember to question narratives and uphold the idea that the preservation of freedom requires constant awareness and action. So until next time, stay diligent and stay vigilant, keeping your minds on guard.